Quicksilver is a mutant who has the ability to move at superhuman speed. In Days of Future Past, when Quicksilver is moving close to the speed of light, he observes time dilation. Because he's moving relative to the other observer's reference frame, he sees time passes more slowly in their reference frame. In this case, Quicksilver is the moving observer, and Magneto, Xavier, and Wolverine are stationary, and they observe the proper time. Additionally, he observes the music coming from his headphones has not been slowed down. Because he's wearing his headphones, it means that they are stationary relative to him, meaning that the sound has not been slowed down. Aside from moving at superhuman speeds, Quicksilver eventually gains the ability to move faster than the speed of light, allowing him to transport through time. He's able to jump years into the future and then return to the present. However, we know that light is the ultimate speed limit. Nothing can equal or surpass this speed, and according to Einstein's equation of relativistic energy, Quicksilver would require a significant amount of energy, an infinite amount of energy to be exact. Because gamma collapses when an object moves at the speed of light, the amount of required energy to accelerate an object to this speed becomes infinite. And because an infinite amount of energy isn't exactly possible to even obtain, this disproves Quicksilver's power. Another amazing mutant is Warren Worthington, or more commonly known as Angel. Angel is a mutant who has the ability to fly because his body is designed like a bird. Hollow bones, large wingspan, and powerful lungs. Newton's first law states that an object will remain at rest or in motion unless an unbalanced force acts upon it. According to this, Angel needs a force to overcome his weight in order to move upwards. Due to the shape of Angel's wings, and by rotating them in a circular pattern, air is pushing less on the top of his wing compared to the bottom of his wing, allowing him not only to move upwards, but also forwards. This push is a reaction force called thrust. Once thrust is greater than the force of gravity, Angel is able to move upwards. When in flight, Angel's momentum is conserved. To maintain his motion, he pushes sections of air behind him to move forward. Consider rowing a boat. To move forward, you use a paddle to push oncoming water behind you so that your momentum is forward. The momentum before a paddle is equal to the momentum after each paddle. This example of paddling a boat can be applied to flight. Instead of using a paddle to push the water, Angel uses his wings to push the air behind him so that his momentum is forward. Havoc has the ability to absorb all forms of radiation and energy, then rapidly discharges it in the form of a plasmic beam. From our knowledge of blackbody radiation, we know that a material has to be pure black in order to absorb any amount of radiation. Additionally, there is no material that has been discovered that can absorb 100% of incoming radiation. Furthermore, Havoc emits beams of plasma that are visible to the naked eye. Taking a look at this blackbody radiation graph, in order to emit visible beams, Havoc would have to have a massive body temperature, making it impossible to wear clothes or even touch him. Additionally, according to the comics, when Havoc absorbs radiation, he converts all of it into plasma. From our knowledge of Einstein's mass-energy equation, we know that mass and energy are equivalent. Energy can be transformed into mass and vice versa. However, 100% energy to mass transformation is impossible. This means that some of the radiation that Havoc absorbs has to be converted into something else. Evidently, that is not the case, and therefore proves that Havoc's mutation isn't possible.
Magneto has many superpowers, one of them being magnetic flight. What magnetic flight is when Magneto is capable of sustaining flight for very long distances and at varying speeds. He has two ways of flying. One is by gliding along the planet's natural magnetic lines of force, and the other by simply creating a repulsive force between himself and the planet. This is not possible to do because no one can control magnetic fields. However, the maglev train, as located in Japan, floats above its rails, and this can be considered to be primitive flight, but not at the level that is shown by Magneto. While Magneto uses his powers of magnetic field, he demonstrates the physics concepts of the motion of a charged particle in a magnetic field, Newton's laws of forces, and kinematics that involve acceleration. Magneto controls magnetic fields, change the magnitude and direction of the magnitude. For example, if he wanted to lift himself off the ground, the magnetic force analyzed is shown on this equation. Call the net charge on Magneto's body Q. Since he controls V, he can control the direction of the magnetic field, and therefore can induce a force that pushes him upward, causing him to fly. As he is flying, he can vary the magnetic field and therefore vary the acceleration, because the magnetic force is proportional to the acceleration. If he changes the acceleration, he can change the velocity, and if he can change the velocity, he can change the direction of the wheel as he sees fit. One of Spider-Man's powers is being able to climb up walls and buildings. He is seen climbing up all sorts of obstacles throughout the movie. This is possible to do, but not by humans. Only species that can climb on walls are insects, reptiles, and a few others. In Spider-Man, it is shown that when Peter Parker obtains his powers, many little hairs grow on his palms and fingers, allowing him to climb walls. Each strand of hair increases the coefficient of friction between his hands and any surface. This is because each hair exerts an electrostatic force on the particles of the surface. Multiply this by the millions of hairs per square centimeter, and suddenly for a palm of 10 centimeters, you have a force that can cause the palm to stick to the wall. Note that this frictional force must be equal to the gravitational force of Spider-Man, and that the coefficient of friction is not the ratio of the frictional force to the normal force, but the ratio of the frictional force to the gravitational force. Since the normal force is negligible on a vertical plane, this frictional force is not proportional to the normal force. Therefore, the contributions of millions of these hairs will create a frictional force that can match the force of gravity, allowing him to stick to the walls and scale them. Another physics concept that Spider-Man has seen in the movie The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is circular motion. This is shown when Spider-Man is throwing the manhole cover at Rhino. The cover undergoes circular motion on a horizontal plane. This can be analyzed as uniform circular motion. The manhole cover, which has mass m, travels through an arc of radius r. The centrifugal force is provided by the tension of Spider-Man's webbing. Therefore, the dynamics follow the equation as shown on the screen, where force is centrifugal force is tension and v is speed of the cover. Another part of this we can examine. Another physics concept is the collision of the plate with Rhino. Since we are talking strictly about right before and after the collision, there is no reason to consider the uniform circular motion. Rather, we have the tangential velocity to the curve at the point where the plate collides with Rhino. This concept is known. We can assume that the collision is elastic to simplify. This means that we can calculate the force of the attack on Rhino using the momentum formulas by the common variable of velocity, and others to determine the force. We can assume that Rhino is not moving initially because his speed in ratio with the speed of the plate is nearly zero. Therefore, the momentum of the plate is completely carried through to Rhino using its inclination. We calculate the loss of energy of the plate, and hence the energy that is coming to Rhino is the energy definitely there. Assuming that there is no release of energy under this perfect measure. Using this information, we can calculate the force of Spider-Man's vicious attack on him. In the movie X-Men First Class, Sebastian Shaw is a villain in the movie that he can absorb any type of energy and can emit it at will. In the movie, he absorbs the energy from a nuclear reactor and converts it to thermal energy and stores it. The energy is absorbed through his hands, then to the concentration of energy, and it must be stored somewhere since energy cannot be destroyed. His body must convert the nuclear energy to a form that can be used easily. This form is called kinetic energy. Therefore, the energy is stored as a mass of fast-moving particles in his body as kinetic energy. Then, when he needs it, he has mutations in his body which allows him to convert the energy into either other forms of energy for his attack, for example, thermal attack with fire, or his mutations allow him to convert the energy to physical material by putting together atoms from subatomic particles, and then other structures from, for example, He can use the energy to make carbon, which is his body then converts to a crystal lattice structure of a diamond that his mutations absorb the structure of earlier.